We're going to be talking tonight about debt management awareness. Debt management awareness. And again, I do apologize that I did not have my microphone, my audio turned on, but I do have it on now. So if somebody from Kingdom Now could text me and let me know that you can hear me now, and that would certainly be beneficial. All right, thank you so very much. And thank you to my wife for coming down here and telling me that you all could not hear me. And I certainly am grateful for that. All right, debt management awareness. Let's go on. I've already said that when we talk about defining debt, I don't have to give you this long drawn out definition of debt because everybody knows that debt is when you borrow money and you got to pay it back. And normally debt comes with interest. And sometimes that interest can be sizable. You know, there's some that are not as large as others, but debt can have a sizable interest attached to it, sometimes 10, 15, 20, 25. If you go to one of these, what I'll call loan sharks, then it could be even higher than that. So just be mindful that when you're doing this, I've even talked to people at times and I've asked them, they talk about, I bought me a new car. I said, well, how many months did you finance it? 60. Okay. What's your interest? And oftentimes they have no idea what their interest is. All they know is that they're glad they've got a vehicle and they're riding. And sometimes when that occurs, you're paying so much more for that car than what the car is worth. Well, you're paying more for it than it's worth anyway, because when you drive it off the lot, it loses value. But always know what interest you're paying, because debt always has interest attached to it. All right. The average American, again, currently has about $38,000 in personal debt. $38,000 in personal debt by the average American. And again, some have more, some have less, but the average American currently has about $38,000 in personal debt. Credit card debt is about 25% of all debt that people have. And some people have several credit cards and they have them all maxed out. That's not good. Whenever your credit cards are maxed out, it's going to automatically impact your credit score. We're going to talk about that also in this lesson tonight. So just be mindful if you have multiple credit cards and if you're maxing them out. If you're going to use cards, then it's better to use a card that requires you to pay it off every month rather than allowing it to just add up. And we'll talk about the difference that makes. 2 in 10 Americans spend 50 to 100% of their weekly to monthly income to pay debts. 50 to 100% of their income goes straight toward debt. And that's, you're talking about living paycheck to paycheck. 50 to 100% of their income is going toward debt. Millennials age 25 to 34 and Generation X ages 35 to 49 have the largest amounts of personal debt. Millennials and Generation X. And interestingly, millennials tend to have more debt than Generation X. And then Generation X, of course, has more than the baby boomers. And the baby boomers have more than the silent generation. It's almost like the older you get, the less debt you have. And normally that is attributed to the fact that the silent generation in many cases does not have a mortgage. The baby boomers don't have student loans. There are people in Generation X and millennials who still have student loans. And of course, that goes toward the debt as well. This is kind of a breakdown of how debt looks for U.S. households. Credit cards, about almost $17,000 of debt in credit card debt. Mortgages average of $176,000. And again, some are more, some are less, but that is an average. Auto loans, about $29,000 in auto loans. Student loans, about $49,000, almost $50,000 in student loans on an average household. And then any type of other debt or any type of debt, $135,000. So that is where you see how the U.S. household and the debt that U.S. households have is kind of broken down. Credit cards, and you may know what your credit card balances are. You may know what your mortgage is. You may know what you owe on your automobile. Just be mindful of these things as you try to live and try to go forth. And people go and they buy cars, and then they're financing them now for 72 months. You know, that's just not wise. It's just not wise. Let me just keep moving. Okay. Good debt versus bad debt. There are some good debts. There are some bad debts. Bad debt, of course, would be credit card debt, store and retail cards. You know, some people have their MasterCard, their Visa, their Discover card. Then they have a Macy's card, a Home Depot card, and all these other retail store cards. And then they have their auto loans on top of that. And God forbid, some even have payday loans. Terrible debt. Payday loans. Whereas you go and get money and you promise to pay it back when you get paid. And normally those payday loans, the interest rate is astronomical. Those are bad debts. Good debt, on the other hand, could be mortgage loans, business loans, student loans. And some will say, well, how can a student loan be considered good debt? Well, we consider it good debt because most people who have student loans, they get the student loan because it is their intent that ultimately that loan is going to reap some kind of benefit. They're going to get a job as a consequence of having that education, and they'll be able to pay that student loan. So it's almost like I'm getting it now, but later I'm going to be able to prosper and develop from the loan that I took out. Not like when you have a credit card or a car even. If you buy a car, that car is not going to bring you unless that is a business loan. Now, if you go out and buy a 18-wheeler, then that's different than going out and buying you a Mercedes, because now you're talking business loan versus auto loans. Mortgage loans, of course, is a good debt. I consider it good debt because when you have a mortgage, then the intent is that mortgage is going to earn equity. It's not going to lose its value. Now, that's not the same if you buy certain types of homes that lose value. I won't say what the type of homes they are, but you will know that a home can lose value if it's not the right kind of home. Mobile homes don't increase in value. I'll put it that way. They don't increase in value. They lose value. So mortgage loans can be a good debt, business loans, student loans. We want to avoid bad debt. If we must acquire good debt, then of course we acquire the good debt. But in acquiring that good debt, we also want to make sure that that good debt is going to reap us benefits. Okay. So what should I do about my debt? That's what we're going to be talking about also. What should I do about my debt? When you have it, what are you going to do about it? And all of us have some debt. Most of us, I won't say all of us, most of us have some debt. What are you going to do about it? Since you know that it's there, what are you doing about your debt? So the first thing Pray for God's wisdom regarding your debt. Pray for God's wisdom. James 1:5, it says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. We have to even ask God's wisdom when it comes to our money. Ask God's wisdom about, God, give me direction now on what I need to do about this debt that I'm in. Even when you're there buying a car, God, what is your, what wisdom can you give me regarding buying this car? Now you have to be willing to accept the wisdom. You have to be willing to sometimes walk away from something that your eyes have gotten bigger than your wallet. And when our eyes get bigger than our wallet, then we dig a deeper hole. So ask God for wisdom when it comes to your finances in every single area. Every area. Ask God for wisdom. Don't be sporadic and spontaneous. Pray to God to give you wisdom when it comes to your money. Again, the Bible says, if any of you lack wisdom, don't try to act like you have it when we don't. If we don't have wisdom, then we have to ask God for it. And he will give it to us liberally. And that word upbraideth, that just means he won't withhold it. Okay? He'll give us wisdom. So that's a simple point. Pray to God for wisdom when it comes to your finances. Second thing, commit to the process. A lot of times when we have debt issues, we don't commit to a process of coming out of it. We don't commit to a process of even managing it. But if you don't commit to it, the Bible says here in Psalms 37:5, commit thy way unto the Lord. And when it says thy way, in this instance, we can say whatever way it is, commit the way that I'm traveling, commit the things that I'm doing, commit my decisions, and commit to the process, commit to what I've got to do in order to manage this debt, to come out from under this load that I'm carrying. I've got so much debt, don't know what to do with it. And if I want to really come out from under it, then I've got to commit to a process. See, we want results without processes, and they don't happen that way. There's a process that we have to go through. And when we are going through that process, yes, it's going to be painful at times. Yes, it's going to require us saying no sometimes. Yes, it's going to require us pushing back and saying, I can't do that. Just because everybody else is going to the beach, that don't mean I can go. Just because everybody else is getting a new car, don't mean that I can. You have to commit to the process. And sometimes even your friends, you have to say to them, look, I'm committed to a process right here. And this process will not allow me to do what you're asking me to do. So you have to be committed to the process. And in that slide, I show you just down there at the bottom, there's a start to the end. And from start to end, there are steps that you have to take, which are part of the process. That's just what process is. Again, the scripture says, commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. He shall bring it to pass. If we commit to the process, he will bring it to pass. We're trusting him. We're committed to it. We're not going to back away from it. We're not going to do things that we should not do. We're going to do exactly what we need to do and follow the steps so that we can, again, come from under the debt, be successful in this process, and see that things change for us. All right. So the first thing was pray for God's wisdom. Second thing, commit to the process. Let's keep going. This one may be challenging for many of us. It says set and follow a 50-30-20 budget. 50-30-20 budget. Now, what is a 50-30-20 budget? That means Let's talk about the 50 first. 50% of your budget goes toward your needs. Housing, you need a place to live. Groceries, transportation, bills and utilities, health insurance, car payments. Now, when you put car payment in there, please make sure that the car payment does not take up that whole 50%. Your needs, your total needs is 50%. Not just your car payment need. Some people have a car payment that's higher than their mortgage. Ask God for wisdom. Okay. When don't make your car payment higher than your mortgage, knowing that you have, now if you don't have a mortgage, and that's a whole different story. But those are the things that fit under the needs: housing, groceries, transportation, bills and utilities, health insurance, car payments. Then let's go to the wants. 30% goes towards your wants, your desires. Travel, entertainment, restaurants, shopping, and hobbies. Now, many of us have this section in the 50%. And then we've switched the needs to the 30%. It's not that you're not going to be successful like that. Keep your wants at 30%. So if you, there's so much I want to say, and I'm trying not to be offensive in my presentation tonight, but let's go on to the 20%. 20% should go for your emergency fund, debt payments, retirement, and investing. %, emergency fund, debt payments, retirement, and investing. And if you set a budget and follow a 50-30-20 rule, then you'll see yourself having a much more successful life. Now, some of us have already kind of messed up this 50-30-20 rule thing, and you say, well, I'm already out of, that ain't work out. I'm so far, all of my money right now is in the, all of my money now is going toward my wants. Got to make some adjustments. Got to make some adjustments. Commit to the process. You may not be able to go out to eat every night, every other night, 2 and 3 times a week. If that's exhausting that 30%, then there may be adjustments that you'll have to make. Maybe you don't need the cable, all the cable channels that you have. Whatever you have to do, have to commit to the process. Have to commit to the process. Okay. Even if you have enjoy going out to eat, maybe Ruth's Chris is not what you need to be right now. Maybe you don't need to go to Cheesecake Factory 2 and 3 times a month. Whatever you have to do, then do that. but you're going to have to commit to the process and just know where your money is being spent. Know how much you're spending in housing and groceries and transportation, utilities, etc., health insurance, car payments. Limit 50% of your income on needs, 30% on wants, and save at least 20%. This is certainly a goal, and that's what a budget is. A budget, you set goals and you start to work toward it. But if you sit down now and you do a budget and you see that right now, say 80% of your budget now is having to go toward needs because you've gotten a sizable mortgage, you have a lot of groceries, you have a sizable car payment. And so now 80% is going toward needs, and you only have 20% left that goes toward wants. Maybe you've got to divide that 20% between wants and savings and reduce this 80% problem that we have over here. You will have to determine that and then do something about it. If you don't do something about it, then it's not going to happen. Okay, so follow a 50-30-20 budget, and that will help you as you start to manage debt. Let's move forward. When it comes to saving and debt recovery, create an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months living expenses. Now, when you create that emergency fund, then that's going to come within that other 20% range. But you want to have 3 to 6 months living expenses in an emergency fund. Sometimes you might hear people say you want 3 to 6 months of your income. No, because unfortunately, many have allowed ourselves, whereas our income is lower than our expenses. And we've got to get that into the right balance. So start trying to get 3 to 6 months of your living expenses in an emergency fund. Maximize your employer match savings program. I can't tell you how many people have a 401k, 403b on their job, an employer match, and they don't participate. Listen, if you work a job and your employer will match 6% of your 401k, I'm just using this as an example right now. You work the job and your employer will match 6%, and you are not participating. I want to encourage you to sign up tomorrow at 6%. You will have just given yourself a 6% salary increase. It's not going to come in the form of cash to you, but it's going to come in form of a match to your 401k, because your employer is matching that 6% and he's putting it into a 401k, a savings vehicle for you. Now, if you work a job and your employer will match 6% and you are contributing 3%, I want to encourage you tomorrow, go and contribute 3% more. Start 3% more, because in doing so, you just gave yourself another 3% increase. Whatever they match, whatever your employer matches, contribute at that level. Now, should you contribute over that level? What I suggest to people is contribute what your employer matches, and then establish your own individual retirement account that you have control of outside of your employer. But you want to at least get what they match. You want their 6% or their 3% or their 5%, Whatever it is, you want what they give you. Don't ever walk away from money that people are giving you. And when there's an employer match, that is money that somebody is giving to you, and you're saying, no, I don't want it. So maximize your employer's match savings program, whatever it is, max it out. And then whatever else you want to contribute to a retirement account, then you can do that outside of your employer's program. Pay off high interest and high APR debt. And we're going to talk about whether you follow the snowball approach or the avalanche approach. I'm going to mention that in just a second. But you want to pay off your high interest and high APR debt cards that you have, whether it's a car or a credit card. We want to get those paid off. Contribute 15% of your gross income to retirement. And we're going to talk about that even more. But you want to try to contribute 15% of your gross income to retirement. Now, that 15% includes what you're doing in your employer match. So if the employer if you got 6% up here and you're trying to get to a total of 15, then that's only 9% more because you're doing 6 in your employer matched or whatever amount you're putting up there. Some are saving 10%. And the employer is not matching it. Again, even when you're doing that, just make sure that you're looking at your 401k to see what type of investments you are a part of, because you may have reached an age where you want to be more of a conservative investor than a aggressive investor. And if that's the case, you might want to change some things on your 401k, switch some things around. So contribute 15% of your gross income to retirement. And then, of course, pay off lower interest debts. We'll talk about how the lower interest debts versus the high interest debts, the difference in the snowball effect and the avalanche effect, or approach rather, of retiring debt. Now, that being said, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Pay off debts using the method that works best for you. Some people will tell you, only follow the snowball. Well, no, if the snowball does not work best for you, then follow the avalanche. It's the two methods that the financial industry uses. I even pulled this from a website. These are the two approaches that the financial industry uses to encourage people on how to pay off debt. The snowball effect is you make the minimum payment on all credit cards except the one with the smallest balance. Okay, so that means if you have 3 credit cards and one of those credit cards only has a $200 balance, the other one has a $500 balance, the other one has a $1,000 balance. Okay, what you're doing is you're making the minimum payment on all the ones except the one with the $200 balance. On that one, you want to pay extra. Okay, again, pay as much as you can on the card with the smallest balance until it is paid off. And then whatever you were paying on that one with the smaller balance, you're going to take that now, because you've already been paying the minimum on the others. But if you were paying, we'll say $50 a month on the one with $200, now that you paid it off, you take that $50 a month and you put that toward the next one. That's called the snowball debt reduction, where you make the minimum payments on the credit cards except the one with the smallest balance. Then you pay as much as you can on the card with the smallest balance until it is paid off, and you repeat the next smallest balance. And again, it shows here very simply, it's best for people who need immediate results to stay motivated. Because a lot of people say, well, I need to see results. Well, if you need to see results immediately, the snowball effect, the snowball approach rather, is the better approach, because now you'll start to see that some of the credit cards are being paid off. Now, when you pay them off, don't close the account. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But when you pay them off, don't close the account. Don't keep using the card. If you need to cut it up, cut it up. If not, put it in a freezer bag and put it in the freezer. But you don't want to close the account. All right. Second approach, debt avalanche. You make the minimum payments on all credit cards except the one with the highest interest rate. Okay. Snowball is the smallest balance. Here is the one with the highest interest rate. Please know what your interest rates are on your credit cards. Again, make the minimum payment on all credit cards except for the one with the highest interest rate, and then you pay as much as you can on the card with the highest interest rate until it is paid off, and you repeat that with the next highest interest rate, following the same approach that you follow with the snowball, except with the snowball is the smallest balance, with the avalanche is the highest interest rate. And you pay one off, then the next, then the next, and then the next, until you are out of that hole that you're in. All right. Some do's and don'ts. I'm almost finished. Do take responsibility for your own financial destiny. Do take responsibility for your own financial destiny. It is your personal responsibility to create your financial destiny. Do negotiate with creditors. There is nothing wrong. And I know that now if you try to call a creditor, you're going to be on hold for a long time. But do negotiate with creditors. You can negotiate interest rates. You can negotiate payments, whatever you need to negotiate. But negotiate with them. And when they know that you are trying to come out of debt, etc., and increase your financial status, then they will work with you. So negotiate with them. Get credit counseling. And I'm going to mention that again in a minute, but get credit counseling. If you're having credit problems, get credit counseling, and you can get that for free through state agencies. Do consider consolidating if it makes sense for your situation. All consolidations do not make sense. But if it makes sense for your situation, do consider consolidating some of your loans. Now, don't consolidate and keep using the cards that you consolidated. If you're going to take 5 credit cards and consolidate them into one, don't now get the bill on that one consolidation and you're still using the other 4 credit cards. You're just going to be digging a hole deeper and deeper. Do know and keep track of your credit score. A lot of people don't know their credit score. You need to know your credit score and set a goal to increase your credit score. Keep track of it. And celebrate when your credit score goes higher. There are some people that don't advise companies like Experian and things like that, where you have to pay a monthly fee to keep track of your credit score. Personally, I don't have a problem with those if you can afford the $25 a month. If you can't afford it, and that's something that you got to take out of your budget, then you take it out of your budget. But I like having that account because it does more than just track my credit. Anytime anybody's trying to check my credit, even though I have it frozen now, I've frozen my credit. But if anybody tries to steal my identity, I'm going to get an alert. And having that information right there in front of me, and I can go in at any time and see it. I can see what I owe to anybody that I owe it. And I like to look periodically to see how my credit score has risen. And if my credit score drops for any reason, I will tell you that it's probably been a year or so ago now, I got an alert that my credit score had dropped. And I'm like, why did my credit score drop? And what had happened, there was a bill that I did not even know I had because it was just coming out of my, it was coming out of my bank account on a monthly basis. It was only like a $25 charge or payment, but then it stopped. For whatever reason, they stopped taking it out of my bank account, and because they were not taking it out, the bill was not being paid, and that company did not get, I think it was Sam's or somebody, they did not get paid. And they dinged my credit, and my credit score dropped. And I called the credit company, called Experian. I said, look, this is not the way I function. My credit score has always been good. Let me just call whoever this is and get this straightened out. Got it straightened out, and they fixed it. And my credit score went back up. So it's good to have that for those kinds of reasons, so that you can always keep check on what's going on in your financial life. Your financial life is an important part of your life. So do know and keep track of your credit score. Some don'ts. Don't live in denial. Don't try to act like you don't have debt when you do. Don't live in denial. Don't try to act like you're not living above your means, and don't try to be somebody that you're not. Don't try to impress people that don't like you anyway. Just don't live in denial. Don't close out credit cards accounts, as it may impact your credit score. If you have a credit card and you paid it off, keep the card open, because now that shows that you have greater credit available to you. And when you have more available that you're using, then of course that gives you a better score. So don't close out the credit card because it could impact your credit score. Don't borrow from your retirement plan. Now, if you are of a certain age, like 59 and a half, and you start taking money out of your Roth IRA, then that's different. Even though you won't be penalized for taking it out at 59 and a half. If you're not retiring yet, then we don't want you taking it out until you actually retire. But don't borrow money from your retirement plan. A lot of people, they save in their 401k, and as soon as they get $1,000 in it, they go and pull it out. No, don't borrow from your retirement plan. Don't trust all debt settlement companies. You're going to get all these people calling you and say, we can settle your debts. Do your homework. Do your homework. Do your homework. Don't trust all of these debt settlement companies. And I won't say any more about that. Don't hide from creditors. Don't tell your children, tell them I'm not at home. No, that don't work. Don't hide from creditors. If you owe it, then do all that you can to pay it. Make some arrangements to pay it. When you're hiding from them, it just makes matters worse for you. And it is a matter of integrity. We have been called to be a people of integrity. If we borrow money, we're supposed to pay it back. Now, I know that people don't like when I say this whenever I'm teaching finances. And I tell people, and they say, well, I filed bankruptcy. I said, well, the money that you got credited for when you filed bankruptcy and they told you didn't have to pay it, is that money that you initially borrowed? Yeah, I borrowed it. Well, if you borrowed it, you still owe it. If you said you were going to pay it, you should pay it. That's the integrity of a Christian. And when you become a Christian, you don't live according to the rules of the world. If we say we're going to pay it, then we're supposed to pay it. It doesn't matter if you went to court and now the court has said, well, you're now in chapter this or chapter that. Well, if you borrowed it, then you should pay it back. That's just, the Bible says, if you make a vow, be careful to keep it. Whatever you say you're going to do it. All right? Next thing, honor God with your financial tithe. I'm going to end in just a second. Honor God with your financial. We don't have a sermon tonight, but I am going to end because I am going to teach another Bible study when I finish this. Honor God with your financial tithe. Notice here in this scripture, Leviticus 27 and 30, all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord. All that's saying is the tithe belongs to the Lord. And you say, well, where do I fit that in that 50, 30, 20? You fit that in the 50. It belongs to the Lord. You say, well, why don't I fit it in the 20? Because it's not a savings. Why don't I fit it in 30? Because it's not a want. Your offerings can be a want, but your tithe is a need. The tithe belongs to God, and we should give that before we do anything else. It is a need, and it falls within that first 50%. Your offerings can fall in that 30, but your tithe belongs in that first 50, which means now you're down to 40. Seek wise counsel, wise godly counsel. Proverbs 11 and 14 says, where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Seek counsel. Swallow your pride sometime. It might almost choke you to swallow it, but seek godly counsel when it comes to your finances. When it comes to anything, seek godly counsel. One of the things that happens with us, especially as African Americans, we come into this thing called adulthood, and we really haven't had any major kind of advice or training as relates to this. And so where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. Find you a financial advisor, a financial planner, a banker, whoever. Find you a good financial counsel, godly counsel that will help you in the area of finances. Maintain discipline in financial matters. I've given you this scripture out of Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, self-control, self-control. Against such there is no law. You will have to practice self-control if you're trying to manage your debt. Self-control. Just because you want it, don't mean you have to have it. Self-control. Don't buy what you can't afford. Don't buy what's not in that 50-20-30, 50-30-20 rule. All right? Then the last thing, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. That's what Walt Disney said. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. That's all I have for tonight. As we've talked about debt management and how we handle our finances. I've seen some people have been posting and texting. Somebody has said, please keep all debt payoff documentation. Yes, whenever you pay off debt, then you always want to keep documentation. Whenever you're paying bills, get you a program of some sort where you track your payments, where you keep up with what you pay, keep up what comes in, what goes out, and don't ever send more out than what comes in. Okay? Good suggestion. Let me see if anybody else posted anything on Facebook that we might need to look at it. I don't see any posts or any questions. I guess everybody's good. All right. Hopefully that was helpful to you. I know that it was brief, to the point. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me, text me, email me, whatever you need to do, because I want to see us have a good financial life. And the only way we have a good financial life is that we practice financial disciplines. Do all of those things that were suggested in this brief presentation. It'll help you. And if it's going to help you, and if you're going to be better in the end, why not do it? Why not do it? And yes, granted, there are some of these things that even as I'm teaching you all, and even though I work in the area of finances and work in the area of preaching, some of these things I have to really check myself on. Go back and say, you don't need to do that. You don't need to get that right now. I can remember a time when I was having a couple of car payments and didn't think nothing of it. But now I refuse to have two cars in my garage that I'm paying for at the same time. That ain't gonna happen no more in my life ever. Hopefully. And there are times when I don't have any car payments. And it's a good feeling when you know, and you can lay down at night and you know your bills are paid. You know ain't nobody gonna be knocking at your door. You ain't gotta worry about waking up in the morning and your lights out. And a lot of times our lights are out and we got on new tennis shoes. Our lights are out and we got on red bottoms. Something wrong with that picture. There's something major wrong with that picture. I mean, you are borrowing money for lunch and you got on red bottom shoes and $200 sneakers. I mean, you got on red bottoms and your boyfriend got on $200 sneakers and y'all can't even go out to eat dinner. Something wrong. We got to get it right. And the only way we get it right is it has to come a time where the preacher, we got to stop so much entertaining, sit down every now and then and just have these kind of talks, these kind of discussions, and tell people this is what has to happen, what we have to do. If you want to, let me say this, and I know I'm going to make hundreds of people mad now, especially some of my preacher friends. Don't be so spontaneous and sporadic when you're at these meetings and these conferences and your emotions are high and there's a $1,000 line and you're going to go get in it. Now, if God tells you to get in it, you go get in it. But if you don't have $1,000, if you don't have $1,000, and I know we're sowing in faith. I know all the jargons. But it's something wrong when we can teach and talk about how we have to manage our finances and not be spontaneous and sporadic. But that spontaneity and that sporadic activity does not apply when we come to church. It does apply. It does apply. There's nothing wrong with you having an emergency account. And when those offerings are called for, and if you know you got the money in your emergency account and in your finances, and you want to go and slam it on the floor and say, I gave it in the name of Jesus, wonderful. Wonderful. But godly counsel will tell you that we have to be more mindful of how we do these kinds of things. All right. Somebody just posted, can we have more of these kind of teaching? Most certainly. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. And I pray you've been blessed and that you now have some understanding of some things you can do as relates to getting your finances in order. Please understand also that this presentation is available on our website, kingdom-now.org. You can go there, get the handouts, download it, utilize it however you choose to utilize it. It's there for your benefit. And I praise God for it. And everybody who I copied some of that art, I tried to make sure that I copied it with one that already had the copyright in there so that we would know that it was their art, not mine. But the presentation that I presented. I hope that it has blessed you tonight. All right. If you desire to give, please do so. You can give by using your Giveify app. You can give by using your Rim Connect app. You can give by going to our website at kingdom-now.org, giving there. However you choose to give, please do so. All right. And just know that I am not one that would ever cause you to do outside of something that's biblical as relates to giving. Give your tithe. Your tithe comes out of that 50%. Your offerings, make sure that in that other 30 that you have now made space that you can give to the Lord accordingly. All right.